Big girl.
Real light.
Okay, week 12 on the Promod build, and it's time to start mounting up these babies. As you can see, we sort of got ahead of ourselves and didn't film anything of us mounting up these turbos. We just started to get into it and didn't film anything. So first time we've done that on this build so far, but we're still gonna go through and talk about it. The way we've done it here is go straight through to the back bar that you would have seen on the firewall where these panels join, straight in there. And we started on that side of the car, which was sort of our plan to start over here because we have the steering, we have the brake coming out of there, we have all of this other stuff coming through. We thought, oh, that's the hard side. Started over there. It all cleared perfectly, but then we come over to this side and the head's further back, the pipes are further back, and it's actually probably the harder side. So, especially to do with the orientation of the turbo, because obviously they're exactly the same, but when you flip them, the turbo's facing a different way, the outlet. So the fat part of the turbo's down here, and the pipe's further back, so we actually had to end up moving this mount back a little bit more, just to be able to get the clearance off of this pipe here, so that it wasn't touching this front cover on the turbo. Also, another thing we did with this turbo mount is the bar we were going to behind here was inch, so we used the inch bar to come off of that, and then the turbo drain mount that we use on these this setup, we had them on the Tirana as well, is a 1.25 inches that goes into the end. So we sleeve that over there, and that gave us the ability to be able to clock the turbo and get it the exact same as on that side, rather than trying to notch it right and having it maybe not in exactly the right spot. That let us slip the turbo on with the 1.25 inch welded into the turbo drain mount, and then we could turn the turbo and then just tack it onto the inch. Garrett suggests that you don't go over 15 degrees on the turbo angle. That's just for oil coming through here. If you're over 15 degrees, it can end up coming into the tail housing, but that's obviously very conservative from them, so we've pushed the boundaries and gone to 20 just because of how we're trying to get the air to come into the turbo. We don't want to be, if we were any lower than 20, we were going to be starting to come into this really hot area here. So that's at 20 at the moment, and we're going to have an intake coming into there, so to try keep the fresh air coming into the turbos there, as well as having enough room to get the pipe out the back and down to where we want it. So yeah, a lot of tricky little things you got to think about when you're mounting up a set of turbos, and they are heavy as well. So we use the big engine crane to actually hold them up, because they weigh about 40 kilos each. So people think that, oh, you don't have a supercharger, and oh, they must be pretty light. These are the same weight as a supercharger. So yeah, there's no weight saving in a turbo car because they're just as heavy. But this, I'll show you the mounting real quick. This is where we mount the turbo from on the drain side. We have two Allen key bolts that come through there, and then you have that O-ring seal around there, which seals onto the bottom of the turbo here. And then, so multi-purpose mounts it, and then we use this as our drain back to the sump. So that's a pretty nifty thing. Let's get into it. We'll start knocking out some braces and start dreaming about some pipes. All right, just gonna cut in here. We just got a package from our awesome friends at Haltech. Obviously a long-term sponsor of McClure Motorsport. 5 years we've been working with these guys. On the Barra Tirana we had a Haltech 2500 in that car. In the last Tirana we had the Nexus R5, which is going to be going into the Corvette behind us. We had an IC7 in the last Tirana, and for this one, as you can see there, we got our hands on the brand new UC10 dash. We'll open it up. I haven't even seen it in person yet, so. Look at the size of that.
It's an iPad. Wowee.
It's actually about the same weight as the IC7, surprisingly. But yeah,
That looks quality, boy.
That is awesome. Obviously, it's an aluminium case, just like the IC7, and comes with the same bolt pattern as an IC7, so that's pretty cool. That's a direct bolt up, and this has more inputs and outputs, which will work in with your existing Haltech ECU. That's an awesome thing that's going to be able to help us have more features, more logging on the car, as well as you can actually run these standalone. So you don't actually have to have a Haltech ECU or an ECU at all in your car to run one of these and log through it and all of that. So you can even run carby poo and have one of these. So big thanks to Haltech for sending this out to us and hooking us up in the new Corvette build. This thing's gonna look crazy in that carbon dash.
All night, no breaks, hotel, no gate, on me, till 2
All right, just about to get into the bodywork on this thing. We've had to replace a little bit of the body here where we stuffed up when we're trying to fit the door hinges. And there's some real weak spots, like real flimsy spots around where the door hinge goes. So I'm just going to lay some strips up in the inside of here just to give a bit more strength to that. I've got that one done. There's a couple little cracks on the other side just before we start sanding it down for paint. Also with the doors, we had a little bit here that we had to modify on the door, which that's just been refiberglass. There was a bit of a uh-oh moment where someone drilled through the door. So we've filled that up with a bit of fiberglass. All little things that went on the editing table, but getting into that now, and we'll be preparing it for primer over the next week. All right, today it's a lovely Wednesday afternoon and we're out in the panel prep area, just right next to the race car section actually. But we're just getting into these, preparing these doors for primer. Basically I'm just using a 180 on the orbital sander, holding it nice and flat and basically just roughing the gel coat up enough so the primer can adhere to it. Like a few high spots like that I've just run over it, and then just as it starts to go through the gel coat I've just stopped right there because that's left a bit in the low spots and just taken a bit of the woof out of it. But we don't want to go crazy. Same with the inside. We've basically just nibbed it all down, got it all nice and dull, and flip it over to this side now. You can see the couple of little pimples and little high spots there. That's about the only thing that you'll get out with the sander. But I think the biggest key is not looking to go into the car shows or anything like that. We want to put the minimum amount of paint just so it looks good, and the minimum amount of primer just so it looks good from a distance. The only place we're looking to put this thing is into the record books. Definitely not putting it in any car shows. So the weight, keep the weight down but look good from a distance. So I'll just give you an example. So that's a little high spot there. Keeping the machine nice and flat, and you can see I've just taken that little high spot, I've just gone through the gel coat and just taken that little high spot off, and then we'll put the primer on, that'll be even flatter again. So that's it. By the weekend hopefully I'll get the front end up here and start getting that ready and maybe get it in primer over the weekend. See what Connor's up to.
Okay, Dad stopped making bog dust for 2 seconds so I can explain this shit to yous. Pretty much just linking up the header to the turbo now, using the headers off the Tirana and also using the crossover pipe, J pipe, whatever you want to call it, to the turbo. This is a piece we cut off of the system that went all the way to the front of the Tirana. There's a piece we cut out of it just over here. That's the big long run to the front. So a lot shorter run on this one. But we do have to remount our wastegates and a few other little things. Luckily I had this little piece up in on the shelf there, the 145 that we needed, luckily to link all this together. So I've got that on there, and that's just, if I hold it the right way, you can see that's going to run towards where we need to go, and then I'll just chop this one back a little bit and put a straight in there to make them meet up. And the wastegate's just going to come off the back of the bend like that, and sit in back here. So you always want to have your wastegates coming off the back of the bend, priority flow, so that you can have better boost control. So if you had the wastegate coming off this side, the air's not pushing into there, it's pushing into the back side where we're going to have the wastegate. So if you had it on this side, the air control wouldn't be very good. So we're going back side, and I've just got that, my little egg on there, ready for when I cut it out. So, and this way, welding it on, which I didn't do on the last one, this way I can die grind out and get it all perfectly flowed out so that that is running mint up there. So I'll get into that now and spend another 2 hours doing that.
All right, today we're balls deep into this front end, getting it all shaped up after putting the bulge in it. As I said, we just put a little bit of filler in to help it transition back into the original shape. So we've been working off this original shape here with our board file, and that's coming up pretty nice. So another thing I do just to help me out, if you're a bit of an old blind bloke, I put a little bit of guide coat down the body line, and see I've worked both sides of the line, and that tells me that I've got not a bad line along there. Now I don't want a sharp line because this car doesn't have any sharp lines, so I've kept it there, and then right at the last minute, when I know it's a nice straight line, I just knock the sharpness off it to round it off. And that's now blunted that down, but we know that we had a nice straight line going down there. It's also good to show you little low spots. See how the blacks stayed in that? So when you put your file over the top of that area, the black doesn't come off. That tells you need a little bit more filler in there. There's a bit of a low spot. Coming around to this side, you can see where the body's come out of the mould. It doesn't really turn out that good. There's quite a low spot here. So all the way down the roof, all the way down the back quarter panels, right through this front end, it's got a bit of a shitty thing. You can see it here where it comes out of the mould, right around to the bottom. So I've had to sand that down, just put a little skim of filler just to put the roundness back into the body there. There's one other pretty bad imperfection in the body, which is here. You can see that there's a little chotus there, and then there's quite a big dick right there. And when I put the filler in, that'll stand out. You'll see those two low spots. Apart from that, the rest of the body's pretty good. So I'll just keep working these lines, keep sanding this, get my nice sharp line on the top, like that. That tells me along there she's not bad. Then come along the top like this. And see how it leaves that black mark? That's not bad. Not great, but not bad for a blind man. So you can see that black mark along there. That's probably good enough. Then we knock it off to get it rounded. And we're getting pretty close to putting some filler in those areas. I'll probably put a little bit of high fill just in these parts, block it back, sand the rest of it down, and then just put 3 coats of primer on it, and that'll be the front ready. All right, we're out here in the spray booth. We've got the temperature set to absolute perfect 19 degrees for applying the primer. Got all the body pretty well knocked down, even though I'm only going to do some high build in the filler areas on this coat. The doors, they don't need any filler, and the wing plates, they're the same. They just need 3 coats of primer. So I'll do some thick stuff on these repair areas, then add a bit of thinners and primer all them while I've got stuff in the gun. So I rubbed this whole deal down with 180 and just on the whizzer, or the DA as some people call it. But then on the real rounded areas, which this car has a lot of, you just add like an interface, which is just a bit of a flexible pad, helps it go around the corners a bit instead of having like sharp edges. So yeah, I've prep washed it. As I said, the temperature's good, so we'll get some coats on there. A big shout out to Global Auto, who's come on board with all the primers and hardeners and paint and 6 litres of Barbados green. Also thanks to Mark from B&B Smash, who sort of got in contact with the guys. But this is their 4:1 primer filler. So I've just knocked up the thicker stuff now that I'm going to put on the repairs. Then I'll add 10% of thinners for when we do the just the primer coat. Oh, and I've got to shout out to Cal, my little buddy Cal. Got me this beauty of a new gun on clearance from Bunnings. So if you hear me swearing in a minute, you'll know it was a shit gun.
Alright, getting done on this side of the car now. Got the header all into shape, wastegate off that side. Don't know where Bailey's gone. He must be on a bench on Bali holiday or something, because I haven't seen him in about 2 days out here. So I've got to do my own filming. So what I've done here is I've actually taken the dump pipe off the Tirana, flipped it upside down, cut the flange off it and put it back up in there, and then just welded the pipe on upside down. Obviously this is going to get cut off. That's coming up pretty sweet now. The angle's good. It's just inside the body line there, and I can start moving on to when we get the Racecraft 90s. I can get that out the side of the car and we can start working on our infill panel for there, for where the pipe's coming out of on the front clip. So moving along good.
Right into this primering on the spill plates and everything. It's outside all primed. I've flipped them over, give the inside a little bit of a buzz up, so they're ready to go for their last coat of primer. Both the doors are done. They've got their final coat of primer, just ready to, bit of guide coat on there. They're ready to whiz down and they're ready for paint. Actually, I've got to flip them over and put a couple of coats on the inside. And I'm just getting to blocking down this little bit of high build I've done. So basically I rub a hell of a lot of it off and just, you know, it sticks in a couple of low spots. Shape that line up, made sure that was all nice and straight. Got some nice roundness back in the top of this, this fender here where it was a bit flattened out. So yeah, get this all blocked back today. I've got a little bit of knife and putty and a couple of little pinholes that you get around the place. So put them in before you start blocking. And tomorrow I'll get this all in its final coat of primer. Then we'll just move on to the roof and quarters, and then that's it, she's ready for paint.
Obviously you've got to drive past the Macca's. I heard raining. Alright, turbos are all mounted up. Got the 90% of the exhaust system finished up with the wastegates on there. Got the dump pipes started with the leftover bits from the old dump pipes. Got 4 Racecraft 90s coming next week, hopefully. Finish them off. Dad's going to start on the rest of the bodywork. He's just finishing up the front clip now. Going to get those primed up tomorrow morning and then start on the big part of the body. So yeah, look forward to that next week. Like, subscribe, drop a comment if you like what we're doing, and we'll see you next week.